Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Marvel Contest of Champions. And it looks like Kabam stepped in it once again. We got our balance update announcements today. And Spider-Woman, it looks like, is getting a nerf. So we're going to talk about what's going on, what is happening. Lots to go over, lots to go through. Don't go anywhere and stay tuned. All right, so let's get into it. Lumatrix is on here, Lumatrix, however you want to say it. And the bottom line on Lumatrix is no changes incoming for Lumatrix. So the Battle Realm's second idol is Lumatrix, the goal of being a hard-hitting, critical hit-focused champion. So this is an attack champion, not a defense champion, with their misdirection mechanic designed to supplement a high-tempo playstyle while also disrupting opponents defensively by restricting their opening. So, high impact, and then it says defensive Lumatrix is all about restricting the windows when they can be punished, rewarding opponents who can comfortably manage, miss, or evade. Not the best defensive champion. He does have a little bit of invisibility, but I think for Kabam, he has hit the mark on what they wanted for Marvel Contest of Champions, and that he's a heavy-hitting attack champion, but not a heavy defensive champion. Not a Serpent or a Zola or a Bullseye. All right, so let's get into the one that really hit us hard. And this is where, in my opinion, Kabam stepped in it again. I don't know why they didn't catch this. So I believe they saw Spider-Woman as a mostly attack champion and not necessarily a defensive champion. And apparently, and they, the way that they pay attention to this is in Battlegrounds. They're looking at what we're putting in Battlegrounds, what we're using, and apparently she was pretty good at defense in Battlegrounds. Now, she does have a ensnare ability, she does have a fumble ability, and she does have a evade ability. So, here's what it says. Our latest Spider-Verse hero has arrived in the contest. Yes, we know that. And the impact of Spider-Woman is definitely being felt. Equipped with both familiar and new abilities, she's dominating against top Mystic defenders like Enchantress and non-Mystic defenders too. While her offensive performance is on the stronger side, it's not something we feel warrants intervention on its own. So they don't really care about what she does offensively. They cared about how we, the community, the fan base, used her defensively. So defensively, and to get directly to the point, Spider-Woman has been more of a menace than we wanted for her Defender Champion attribute being a 3.5 out of 5. Now, Serpent is like a 5 out of 5. Bullseye and Zola are close to 5s. Those, they didn't get nerfed, but Serpent, in my opinion, is not a pretty big attack champion. Neither is Zola. And Bullseye can be, but he is not the strongest attack champion for that particular class. For tech, for Zola, for skill, for Bullseye, and for cosmic, for Serpent. So they are defensive powerhouses, but not necessarily attack powerhouses. Spider-Woman definitely is an attack powerhouse, and she's just not hitting that. She's above a 3.5 out of 5, which is where they put her on their scale, which doesn't really mean anything to anybody. Nobody pays attention to that. Nobody cares. But apparently it is something that they care. It is a semi-quantitative value that has no meaning. So, therefore, let's get to the meat of this. Therefore, we will be removing the ensnare debuff from her kit so that attackers are not pressured with a long-lasting ability accuracy reduction on a regular basis. So every 15 seconds, she puts an ensnare on. And the ensnare it prevents the evades, and it has a 30% ability accuracy reduction, meaning that if they have an ability that triggers off of something you do, 30% of the time it doesn't work. And she's got a fumble too. They didn't say they're getting rid of that, so we'll have to see what's going to happen with that. We expect this change to free up attackers to more consistently play around her other RPG threats like severe, power sting, and fumble. So it doesn't look like they're getting rid of the fumble, and that's ability accuracy too, but they're getting rid of the ensnare. So when she was on a defense and she ensnared you, you couldn't evade, and you really couldn't use your dex very well. So I think that was the problem. So while removing ensnare will obviously have some effects on her attack power as well, kind of, not really. I didn't really use the ensnare as much. It was a little annoying because it was, it only worked 30% of the time. You could see it on the opponent if you were on attack. You could see it on them. It was there, and it didn't always trigger. A lot of times it triggered when you didn't want it to trigger, and it caught me off guard. And a lot of times when I wanted it to trigger, it just didn't do anything. And then that also caught me off guard. It was not reliable. So we haven't seen Spider-Woman need a solution to evade across her matchup, so they're leaving evade alone. Similarly, the ability accuracy reduction isn't potent enough to encourage using it as a solution to defensive encounters. That I was just saying that. But was strong enough to add confusing interactions across the game, specifically in her Enchantress counter matchup. This evade answer didn't have many opportunities to make an impact, as debilitate, her own evade or miss unstoppable, and general anti-mystic abilities already allow Spider-Woman to control the fight from the beginning. So they're talking about, if you put the ensnare on Enchantress, how well is it working? Well, it didn't work that great. It was unreliable. It was massively unreliable. So we're getting that. Did it need to happen? I don't know. Why did it happen? I think the question isn't, did it need to happen? I think the question is, why did it happen? Why is Kabam doing this? Why didn't they catch this before? I just don't understand. It's like a layer of defensive ability on her while she's a defender that kind of stops opponents in battlegrounds from doing things. So, why didn't they quality control? I have heard that in the CCP server, when she was tested, that the ensnare was not 30% ability accuracy reduction, it was 100%. So it was tested at 100%, but they felt that lowering it to 30%, why isn't it 0% on defense? I don't know. So what's next? They are going to add her to the upcoming Batch 2 in January. So Deathless Vision, I think, is getting a bump. Joaquin Torres Falcon is getting a bump. Spider-Woman Jessica Drew is getting a nerf. And Toad is coming in as a 7-star. And I'm excited about that. That one we are mucho excited for. We love the Toad. So, all right. That is the video I have for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.